Greetings and welcome to STEM Inspired, where we utilize personal stories and experiences to interest the possibility of a STEM profession in adolescence.
I'm your host, Jacobs Naz.
Today on the show, we have a marine biologist, a sailor.
They're also a scuba diver and have dove deep down into the ocean.
Please give a warm welcome
To Julie Bursek.
Can you tell us your name and what you do for a living?
Sure, I'm Julie Bursek, and I am a marine biologist, but I work for NOAA's Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, and I'm the team lead for education and outreach.
And what's it like to go to work every day?
Every day is different. It's one of the reasons I love my job. I spend time in the office. I am a manager, so I'm managing the education and outreach, so a lot of time behind the computer, but I'm also the unit diving supervisor for our site, so I manage the dive projects that go out and monitor different resources within the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. And usually the dives are about 55-foot depth, and we swap out the scientific instrumentation. We have these acoustic receivers on these mooring lines, and the acoustic receivers pick up acoustic tags that have been put on sharks and other large fish. And so about twice a year we go out and retrieve these receivers and download the data, and then we can kind of see what kind of organisms have swam by that particular location at any given time. I also get to participate on those dives too. So that gets me out to the islands and gets me into the field, which is originally what is my passion for why I got into this. But then we also have other work we support that diving's not really the right tool to use. It's too deep. So then we have remotely operated vehicles that we have partners that fly those.
What's the best part about your profession?
I get to work with so many different creative people and a lot of different experts in the field of marine biology and oceanography. And every day I'm learning something new. And I love to be able to communicate that and get my community excited about the ocean too and want to figure out ways they can protect it. So that's what's really exciting is I think just connecting people to the place.
What is rewarding about your profession?
I think what's really rewarding is when we see the efforts of our hard work, whether it's school-aged kids getting excited, learning something new that they hadn't heard about before about the ocean, sparking their curiosity. Love that. I also really love meeting people that are out at the islands or on the water and learning about why they're out there and why they're passionate about the ocean. I love sharing results from science to sort of highlight some of the issues that we are trying to address to protect the waters around the Channel Islands. And just when we're out there, seeing something like a humpback whale come to the surface or breach or do some of its different behavioral displays is always super exciting too. And I love sharing that with people.
Do you have a personal connection to your profession?
Yeah, ever since I can remember, as a little girl, we would go to the beach on the weekends. I grew up in Orange County in Southern California, and we had a sailboat, and my dad was an avid sailor, and so we would go sailing on the weekend. And I used to always be the rail meet on it for my dad, and we'd sail around. But every once in a while, we'd see dolphins, or I'd look in the water and I'd see the kelp or some fish swimming near the surface, and or sea lions. I always love snorkeling. Once I put my face in the water, I realized there's a whole different world down there. And I loved going boogie boarding and tide pooling. The ocean's always been such a great inspiration for me.
When you were younger, you said you started scuba diving underneath in the ocean. How was that experience for you?
My first time was it was interesting. Well, the first time I put a regulator in my mouth. So I also grew up swimming. I was on swim team a lot growing up. So I've always been around the water. And you never, ever, ever, ever try to breathe underwater. You'll drown. But to trust the regulator the first time, that was hard. This little disc that you're putting in your mouth, and that's going to be your air source. So the first time I breathed in, it was a little weird. It didn't remind me of Darth Vader and Star Wars. Then our first beach dive we did in the ocean, I was up at Refugio, north of Santa Barbara. We had to do a beach entry, and I remember going in and I tripped and I fell. So then I'm laying flat down on the sand, and it's completely murky. There's just sand going all around me. It's all swirling around. And our instructor said, just keep kicking and swim out. And all of a sudden, I came out of this sandy murkiness into this beautiful sand dollar bed right off the coast. And then sand dollars, when they're living, they have a purple little spines on them, and they're beautiful to look at. And they're all sort of stacked in parallel rows under the water. And I had never seen anything like it before. And that was my first sort of view when I came out of the murkiness of the sand, was just this beautiful sand dollar bed. And it's been a lasting impression on me.
When you were younger, what did you imagine you would do for work?
I can't believe I'm saying this. I thought at one point when I was probably in fourth grade that I wanted to be the first female president of the United States. And then I thought I wanted to be, well, it really was to be a scientist. It started off very general. And I think when I was in middle school, I was a little bit underwhelmed with science. It was a lot of prepared slides, learning about cells and basic structures. And it didn't really come alive for me. I think it was when I hit high school, I had a really great marine biology teacher. And I took it for fun because I thought, well, I love the ocean. It would be a great biology course to take. And she really encouraged me because of my passion around the ocean, and I love science and math.
Mhm.
She suggested maybe I should look at that as a career pathway and study it in college. And so she inspired me. She encouraged me, and she gave me sort of the confidence to think that okay, I could do something like this. And I identified with the subject material. Like I was just like, oh yeah, I've seen that before at the beach, or oh, I was wondering what that was, or just I don't know. It just for me, it brought science alive to me, and I could apply science to the ocean and the marine life within the ocean. But I really drew from my childhood experiences, and I love poking around the tide pools. I think a lot of the marine life is really weird to look at. It's beautiful colors, strange shapes, weird adaptations. And I just find it super fascinating. And as I keep learning more and more about the ocean, the more fascinated I become. So it's sort of a lifelong curiosity that I'm following.
Can you tell me about someone who has been the biggest influence in your life?
My dad was a huge influence in my life. Always encouraged me to follow my passions. He taught me to be disciplined. If I really wanted to do this, I needed to make it work. I don't think he was convinced that I could carve a career in marine biology for myself and make any sort of money, but it's worked out very well. I think my dad always believed in networking. It's really about relationship building, and I think that's something that I try to share with students too that I work with is if you're interested in something, get to know some of the people in the field. And so my parents would set me up with opportunities to meet different professionals, and so I had some conversations too, um, and was able to ask questions about so how did you get into this career, or, whatever. And I think that helped me ultimately figure out my pathway. It was just sort of jumping in, trying some things out, volunteering, taking a low paying job to start with, but just getting to know people in the field and figure out the industry. And then that sort of has worked for me to sort of then figure out my next step. And if I need to go to graduate school, which I did do, to get an advanced degree so that I could help market myself and get to know, become a little bit more of an expert in the field. All of that, it was sort of just networking and um, learning from others that are practicing in the same industry.
What are some lessons that he taught you that applied to your profession now?
Grit, stick with it, even if it doesn't seem to pan out. I remember in college for a while there, some of my classes were kind of tough, and I was in the general biology classes and chemistry classes, and I thought, wow, this is pretty challenging, and I wasn't sure that maybe I made the wrong decision. And he was really, a big advocate of just stick it out. If this is what you want to do, start talking to your professors about other classes that are going on that you're going to be able to take, and kind of start looking forward to the next point in your college career. So it was always sort of, do the work now to get ready to go that next step. And so that was good advice. Just sort of stick with it. Um,
Mhm.
and if you're not happy with the direction you're going, then stop, assess, and either change direction or adjust your course a little bit so that you are happy. And that I think the roots go back to sailing a lot with sort of the metaphors and the conversations that my dad and I used to have. It was always, steady on the helm, keep your eye on the next buoy, and stay on course. And sometimes stuff happens, winds will kick up or gear will break, so you have to sort of focus on the task at hand and be resourceful and figure out how to get back on course if you get off course, and do the best you can. Always do the best you can. That was probably the biggest thing he always said.
What advice would you give to children who would like to enter a STEM profession?
Connecting the dots. I think for STEM, it's all important. And I even talk about with my own kids. Like I know my oldest son's in middle school, and he's like, I don't understand what I'm learning right now, how it's going to apply to what I want to do. And I'm like, well, it's all the building blocks, all of what you're learning right now, you're going to build on it as you keep going through your schooling. And then, you'll see the application of it. And so I think if we can provide more of those application examples for middle school through high school, it'll really help kids, I think, to connect the dots earlier, to realize that it's interconnected, and these disciplines that they're learning about, whether it's math, science, engineering, whatever it might be, if they're into gaming or programming, there's all these foundational sort of skills they need to learn first to be able to get to that point. And so really, I think this is great that you guys are doing these interviews and helping kids sort of see potential pathways they can pursue with what their interests are or what they're good at. That it's not just learning it to take a test. It's actually helping them to become experienced and get some skills together that'll help them in the future.
And one last question. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Let me think about this. This is good. There are many parts of the ocean that I would love to explore. I love to explore in general. And what I think is really kind of cool is the fact that there are still so many parts of the ocean that are left to be explored that people haven't been to yet. So I would love to be able to have the power to go where I want to go in the ocean. Like I could just, uh, adapt to the pressures of the deep ocean or the coldness, and we be able to just be able to go and be resilient and thrive in those places and explore and find some new discoveries, just learn more about what's out there, because I just think it's really cool that we have this vast ocean on our planet that there's still so much to learn. So I guess I would like to be able to transport myself to different ocean regions and just get firsthand views of what's going on down there.
Thank you for taking the time to share your story. It's been truly inspiring.
Well, thank you very much, Jacob. It was nice talking with you.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our program. STEM Inspired is a project of BC STEM Ventura County's cross-sector network to improve educational outcomes in the STEM fields from early learning to career. STEM Inspired is generously funded by Arconic. Innovation engineered. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the lives and experiences of STEM professionals. As always, I'm Jacob Zinahaz. Discover new things. You never know when an interest can become a passion that can change the world. This has been STEM Inspired.